Today is episode 10, and we are talking all about how to design your happiness and why we need to stop giving it away. Hey love, you're listening to the Mums and Biz Show, and I'm Victoria. Every week I'll bring you the unvarnished version of what it means to be a mum running a brilliant business, what you need to be doing to get it to where you want it to be, and a healthy dose of how to get the heck out of your own way. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Mums in Biz Show. Today is episode 10, and we are talking all about how to design your happiness and why we need to stop giving it away. Sounds like a bit of a fluffy topic, I know, but I've got some real juice in here for you today. So what is this about then? I've discovered recently that finding your true happiness in your present is quite an art and a skill to master. And I know that you have heard and most likely believe that money doesn't buy happiness, and that if you aren't happy now, you're not going to be happy in the future. But how do you find what's holding you back? And how many of us actually work on that? And if you get super honest with the answer to this question, what is it telling you? Are you happy? Are you really, truly happy right now? The reason I'm tackling happiness this week is because I really believe that figuring out happiness for you is one of the keys to success in business as a mum. And so that's why I'm delving into this. I really have been learning a lot about this myself in my own personal business journey over the last month or so. And so I'm really excited to share some of this with you and also hear what your thoughts are. All right, let's dive in. So why the heck am I talking about happiness on a business show? True success is only achieved when you feel successful, which is an arbitrary way of saying success means something completely different to each of us. And what feels successful for you is not what feels successful for me. And while you can go about using a structured approach to figuring out what success looks like for you. In fact, I definitely think that's something that you would benefit from doing. It's something that I have done in my business and my career and as a mum, and it's certainly something I work through with my students in Conflicted to Confident. Unless you really know what makes you happy though, and how you feel when you're happy, it can be hard to know when you've actually reached that point of success. And one of the things that I've been exploring recently is how you actually feel success right now through feeling happy right now. And I would argue that if you can find your happiness right now, then you will feel successful because you will start to release your tight control on the outcome that you're looking for and live more in the moment. It's actually incredibly freeing and empowering to stop putting all the pressure on your business in terms of achieving those dreams that you're aiming for. Sounds a bit woo-woo. I promise you that if you stick with me, you'll see what I am talking about. And I've got some practical tips here that will help you figure out what happiness looks like for you. So, my story about how happiness has crept back in and finding the small joy, or finding the joy in small moments in life. So as you know, if you have listened to any of my episodes where I talk a bit about my backstory, we recently moved back to Victoria. That was about a 12-month ago kind of thing for us now. And what I have found is that in making these changes along the way of getting us to where ultimately we want to be, how we want to be living as a family, how we want to be dedicating time to our family unit and our extended family, it's been really incredible learning how to feel the joy in the small moments. What do I mean by that? So we are living in a rental property right now. We're in a beautiful area of Melbourne. There is a lot of beautiful gardens. We've been really getting into getting our garden established. I'm really enjoying the difference in my corporate environment for the most part, but there are changes happening around there that will fix some of the things that aren't working terribly well. But what I have found is that as I got more aware of deliberately noticing when I felt happy and then sitting in that moment for a little bit, I started to realize where I was getting joy from. an inordinate amount of joy is coming to me from the gardens at the moment. And I think part of that is change. So for those who aren't familiar with Australia, Brisbane is really warm. It's a really humid sort of tropical climate versus Victoria, which is quite a cool climate. You get your very clear 4 seasons in the year. And so we're just coming out of our first full winter in Victoria, and the gardens are they're just full of promise. There are buds everywhere. I've been growing bulbs, and we've got all these beautiful flowers that have been coming up right through winter. You can see all of the fruit trees are just ready to explode with all their springtime flowers. And I am getting such immense joy out of seeing that development happening. I'm also the more I kind of noticed those sorts of things, and for me it was noticing weather and gardens that started it, and then I started to be more observant. Finding those moments when you're with your kids and they like grab your face and look you in the face and tell you that they love you, or are just being so friggin' adorable that you just want to eat them up. Like the feeling the joy in that moment and sitting with it, and then just forgetting the fact that there was crap all over the lounge room floor and the kitchen wasn't clean, and I hadn't done X, Y, Z that I had wanted to get done that day, and really being present in the moment with my girls and embracing that. And just the more I got really deliberate about focusing on the joy that I was feeling in different moments, the more I started to realize how incredibly happy I am in my life right now. I'm incredibly happy with where we're living. It's not perfect. I don't live in utopia. I'm no different to you. I'm sitting here in front of you as a mum with 3 sick people in her house who's had very little sleep over the weekend and would love nothing more than to go and check into a hotel and curl up in a ball. I don't have the perfect life, but I am incredibly happy in my life. Does that make sense? I would love to know how that difference resonates for you, because this is honestly something that I am exploring, but it's just so much has happened over the last month along these lines that I needed to share it with you. Okay. The other thing that has changed for me is being really deliberate in focusing on gratitude in each moment and situation. And that has been something I have been especially focusing on in the situations where I am not feeling like a very happy human. For example, the screaming child in the middle of the night, a really stressful work situation where I haven't had control over something that's been going on, having a stressful moment with my husband. And while you can't always find the gratitude in the situation at that point, being able to reflect on it and find something to be grateful for, because everything happens for a reason, and I do actually believe that. So that has been really important, because I think if you have the more you practice any kind of mindset approach, the more it becomes second nature. And so if you're focusing on finding gratitude in things, then it starts to become second nature to feel grateful. And that changes your headspace, and it changes the perspective that you bring to things, whether they're a good or a bad situation. So the other thing is, this also has really helped to let go of the past. So you know that I talk about not embracing our mum guilt situations, letting go of remorse, self-recrimination. If we live in a focus of the things that have passed, you have no control over something that has already happened. You can't change it. You can only change what you're doing in the now to perhaps rectify that situation or ensure it doesn't happen again. And but by living in the past and dwelling on those things that have already happened, that's where you feel guilt. That's where you feel that remorse and the recrimination and the, regret and all of those sorts of emotions, which can be really unconstructive in your current headspace and where you are right now. Because if you're focused on the guilt and how you feel about that situation, how can you be fully focused on what it is that's happening right in front of you and making informed decisions that are right for now? And so that's about letting go of the past. And then being able to make choices based on your intuition and tapping into the wisdom that you already have as a mum in business. One thing we are great at, and I talked a little bit about this in last week's episode, as mums, we have incredible intuition when we learn to tap into it. You know when your babies are sick or not well or something's not going to go a certain way. Sure, they surprise us on a very regular basis, but we still have this really strong intuition. And invariably when we ignore our intuition is when something doesn't go as we might expect it or in the best way possible. And then you're like, I knew I should have trusted my intuition. I knew that was going to happen. How many times have you done that? So if you can really embrace your intuition, which is really just you being informed and aware about your circumstances and knowing yourself and your family and your business, and following where your instincts are taking you and helping that guide your choices in your business, that can make a massive difference. And so can you start to see how you couple these things together? Courage starts to come into it, yeah? So you're being brave, you're making choices and changes in your life right now that move you to where you want to be. And let me give you an example of that from our lives recently. So we are in the process of buying a house, and we've been looking for property since we moved to Victoria. We have this really strong vision of where we want to be living and how we want to be living. But we weren't forcing it. We weren't, racing around looking for property, but this property popped up. And at the same time, a different contract opportunity popped up for me in my corporate environment. And, just a few other things kind of lined up. And we've ended up just kind of following along. There's a wonderful mortgage broker who's in my Real Entrepreneur Mums group, and she's been absolutely amazing in making this effortless. And so we moved to Victoria. We have found our family. I've found my happiness. We've found this amazing balance for us as a family unit. All of a sudden, the right property popped up, and we were able to get it at a price that worked for us. And, bang, 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 bang. Things just kind of line up. And what I'm saying is, if you don't try to force it and actually trust in your instincts and following the opportunities that come up, and yes, you have a plan. Of course, you have a plan. I have a plan. I'm a planner. Like I'm a J, baby. In Myers-Briggs language, I have multiple plans. You've all seen my journals, but I'm learning to stay open to opportunity. So this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about then. If you can find your happiness in your world right now and practice that skill of noticing the joy in the small moments, being grateful, learning what to be grateful about for the things that aren't going so great, learning how to trust your intuition, and starting to tap into that bravery to make small choices now rather than to wait until X big thing happens so that you can have this amazing life, that will all start to change your headspace. Because if you are happy now, you will be happy when you get to wherever it is that you are going in your business journey. If you are not happy now, chances are you won't actually be happy there, because you're going to wake up one day and you might be making a huge amount of money, but it hasn't fixed any of the things that at your core are fundamental to how you and your family need or want to be living. So what I wanted to do then was give you something a little bit more tangible to work with. And I have been reading a book. Have you ever heard of I'm going to totally torture the pronunciation of this language. It's Swedish, and it's lagom, I think, is how you pronounce it. This is the book. Lagom Life. There are lots of books. Obviously, this just happens to be the one that I've been reading. And I just absolutely love this concept. It is all about balance and harmony and sufficiency. And lagom is a word that doesn't translate directly in English at all. What it means is not too much, not too little, just enough. It's kind of this whole concept about contentedness, having enough and not feeling deprived. And what I love about it is, and I'm only going to go into a little bit of what it says today, but they talk about it in all aspects of their life. And anybody who is familiar with Swedish culture, now I have not actually been to Sweden, but after reading this book, it is 100% on my list of countries to go to, is this notion of not living in excess. And you're not feeling deprived, but you're happy with what you've got. You're happy with the way that your life is balanced. You're happy with the harmony of your life. And I love this idea of thinking about life in harmony versus trying to achieve this notion of balance, which I think means something different for us in sort of the Australian and American way of thinking about balance. We've created it as this, utopic kind of place to get to where you've got ultimate balance. And I don't think that is, I mean, of course it's possible, but I don't think that we set it up in a way that we're able to ever feel like we've achieved it without giving ourselves a hard time when we're not there. Does that make sense? And so the defining factor is, for Swedish culture, is achieving the balance between working hard and having enough time for family and community. Now, this is a concept, and that's why I'm raising it today, that has science behind it as well. So as you know, you don't perform at your best if you have too much stress going on or not enough engagement, or you're feeling alienated, or there's any number of things that can contribute to how you're able to think and process. And the science, the body science behind that is because your prefrontal cortex, which is the bit of your brain that does all your future planning, your complex decision making, your organizing, multitasking, it needs those optimal conditions to perform at its best. That's something that we know. And the way that you would most often experience that is if you are not stimulated enough, or you're super, super stressed, to give you the two extremes to kind of understand it. But what that means is that it's not only that it's better for your health to start to embrace what is happiness for you now, but finding that harmony between your goals and where you're at is essential for that part of your brain which helps drive your strategic planning and business activity to operate at its best. And so if you can find this point where you're appreciating the things that bring you joy in your life right now, that you're putting your boundaries in place so that you've got your dedicated time for family and your dedicated time for you, as well as your work responsibilities, and that you're prioritizing those things, actually what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to be ready for your ideal life, for your business to be what it needs to be, for that to happen. And also, and this was a big aha moment for me with all of the things that have happened for us, is I had put so much pressure on my business to be the thing that delivered this ideal life for us. When in actual fact, what I've realized is that my business is one part of that puzzle, and it has a really important part to play, and it's not diminished in any way in terms of priority and what I'm focused on, but it's quite a feeling of relief not to have the pressure of our entire future sitting on the business, because I know that actually it's a combination of a whole bunch of different things that we do and how we live to get there. Does that make sense? It actually makes a massive difference when you release that level of pressure off your business, because what that does is then free up your brain to start to get that harmony in place, stop feeling that constant, incredible stress around your business results, and therefore actually be able to operate better. And so the net result of that for me was I had this, I have to do these things before the end of the year, and this is the launches that I'm going to run, and I want this many students coming into Conflicted to Confident. And when I kind of released that pressure a little bit, I kind of sat back and went, actually, no, I think what the right thing right now is for me to design a group program. And so that's what I'm working on right now, and there'll be more information coming out about that. But it allowed the strategy part of my brain to really work on what actually is the right next step for my business and for my audience and the people who are engaging with me and what they want. And so it meant that I still have a plan. I'm still going to do another student launch later this year, but I was able to not be so focused on this step-by-step approach that I wasn't open to realizing how else I could be moving my business strategy along. So what that looks like is you will be happier, your family will be happier, your business will be relieved of the pressure of delivering all of your dreams. It will perform better because you will be able to operate optimally when you're making decisions. And it just becomes another piece of the puzzle. So there is a catch. There is always a catch. Striving for happiness doesn't work either. Do you ever find, like, when you focus really, really hard on something, all of a sudden it becomes completely unattainable? Happiness is like that. This is about learning how to find your happiness through small changes every day. The harder you try to find happiness, likely the more stressed and anxious you'll become about the fact that you're not happy yet. And you probably are already happy, you're just not realizing it because you're expecting more of it rather than sitting in those moments. So I'm going to give you some practical tips that I've drawn from this concept of Lagom, because they're changes that I'm making in my life and they're making a difference. So I hope that they will give that change for you as well. So if we start with the concept of Lagom, some of it is about being really deliberate about your time. First off, Lagom and contentment. If you live in a Lagom way, contentment will surely follow, while striving for happiness can be counterproductive. There is actually a whole new field or group of psychology focusing on happiness and how the chemistry in our brain responds to happiness and how we go about realizing that, which I found really fascinating. I'm not going to bore you with all of that science today, though. That is my nerdy scientist coming out. But the bit that I am going to talk about is time, because that is something that is of major challenge to most of us who are mums in business. Well, to mums full stop, whether we're in business or not, but I know that it is an issue that you guys struggle with. And the Lagom approach to time is really about reclaiming your own time. And the Lagom approach to time is really about reclaiming your own time. And I have a worksheet already developed that helps you work on reclaiming your time. And so think about how much time you have in your week. Where can you reduce the number of activities that you have on? Where are you doing things as a family, or just for yourself, or just your children, that actually none of you want to do? Where are you doing things that you feel like you should be doing, because that is what you do as a parent? You chase around after your children through all of these sporting and social events and, different cultural learning things that we have to do to ensure that they are well-rounded adults. Let me ask you a question. How many of you spent every night of the week, and by you I mean those of us who are in our early 40s, I didn't do that as a kid, and I'm an okay adult. I am. I don't seek to deprive my children, but what I am being is really deliberate in the choices that we make, and that we only do things that feel really right from a family perspective, or from something that the child really, really wants to do. So my challenge to you is reduce the amount of activities that you plan during the week and the weekend, and try to leave one day free per weekend. That is when you can find your Lagom time. Someone's laughing at me there. And allow yourself to be spontaneous and spend that quality time with your family. So actually carving time out is really, really important here. Set a really deliberate time when you stop work, if you work in an office, and make sure that you leave then. Now, many of us, and I have been really guilty of this in the past, is if I am not working late, then I'm not working hard enough. in my corporate world. And I fortunately do not subscribe to that anymore. I've been able to change that headspace, but it was a really hard thing to do when I was surrounded by colleagues who worked late. But you know what? This is statistically speaking, you will be more efficient if you have a set time when you need to leave. You already know this. Part-time working mums are amongst some of the most effective workers in the workforce. And your boss knows that. And so setting a deliberate time when you need to leave work and not compromising on that is a really, really powerful way for you to signal to yourself that you are really prioritising yourself and your family. And that's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoy listening to the Mums in Biz show, I would love for you to leave us a review on iTunes, and be sure to post a snap of you enjoying the show on Instagram and tag me at nicole.tuerick. You can also join in the conversation with me in the Mums in Biz tribe on Facebook. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Mums in Biz show.